on. Thank you so much for your time. Kayvan, of course, thank you for
Yeah,
your
for sure.
time. We are so stoked to have you here. So I want to start off just by learning a little bit more about you, how you got to this position, and like what kind of drives you, because you do a lot more than just your titles.
Yeah. So on like the job side of things, I'm the director of artist relations and A&R at Genius, and Genius Distro right now, which is a new product that we're launching. So you'll see a little bit more about that as the year goes by. But predominantly, I have really worked on booking and interviewing artists for all of our video series at Genius. Helped launch Open Mic, the series, which is kind of my baby. I love it. And then also work on branded content as well at Genius. So I book talent for an interview for branded content campaigns, which is like, if you go to our YouTube channel, we did like a open mic video with Snow Allegra and Burberry, which is something that I worked on, where she performs like, overlooking the ocean wearing a full Burberry outfit. The keyboardist is wearing a full Burberry outfit. And so stuff like that. Then on top of that, I do a bunch of other stuff outside of Genius. So I'm an artist manager. I've been doing that for roughly about 8 years, I think, maybe almost close to 10 years. And I create some playlists. I run a Discord community with over 2,600 independent emerging artists, producers, creatives. I do a Twitch stream every Monday and Friday where I review independent and emerging artist music, and run a couple playlists as well on Spotify and Audio Mac. So I'm kind of doing maybe too much, but I just really love music. So I tend to just keep adding things to my plate, even though I know I'm busy. How I got here is a really long and convoluted story. I'll try and shorten it as much as possible. So I was born in the UK. I moved to North Carolina when I was like 14 years old. I was already writing music, and so kind of like dove into writing and recording music for myself when I was in high school. Graduated high school, went to college in Nashville, Tennessee at Belmont University for music business with a production emphasis. I then switched to a business emphasis because I just figured I needed to know more about the business and the production side of things. I was already kind of learning on my own. Was an artist for the first like 2 years of college, did pretty well on the blogs when that was still a thing. And then from the transition from that into I think like SoundCloud and Spotify and stuff like that, I just kind of got lost. I had a team of people that didn't really care about my vision. And so it was really hard to continue to do that. So I kind of stepped away, was like, I'm going to learn how to do everything else so I don't have to rely on anyone. Started interning at studios, learning how to produce, running sessions, did more internships, graduated, got a job at Creative Artists Agency, which is a really big talent agency. Held book shows in the country space for about a year and realized pretty quickly that I hated that with a fiery passion. So I quit that job and went into freelancing. I was driving Ubers. I started working for a media company and managing during that time as well. So from that, started making trips up to New York just to meet people and network, which if no one's told you that, networking is really like a huge part of this, and has really been the thing that I think has changed my career the most. I met Rob Markman, who is now my current boss, and my last trip up to New York, which was really cool. And we sat and we talked about a bunch of stuff for like an hour and a half. I didn't really expect anything to come of it. And then 2 weeks later, he let me know they were opening a position, which was my first role at Genius, which was artist relations associate. For the first like 6 months there, I was really just watching Rob do interviews, learning from him, and then booking interviews with like, as many artists that I could outside of hip hop predominantly, because Rob was kind of already the hip hop guy. So I was like, all right, let me kind of carve a lane for myself in pop, R&B, anything else that's doing really, really well on YouTube that can maybe help us grow our platform, which was really cool. That kind of has led to me having some of our biggest content pieces under my belt, as things that I've either booked, pitched, or done the interviews for, all three of those things. And then since then, I kind of just realized that there was a bit of a hole for emerging and independent artists with what we were doing at Genius. And that's always been like a really like important thing to me. So that was kind of how I started doing all the other stuff that I do now, was just to kind of shine a bit more of a spotlight on artists at an earlier stage. And yeah, I've really been able to grow a community around that, which is really cool for me, because that's the community I come from first and foremost, but also where I've really like had the most success in finding artists as well. Like I was really, really early on some really big artists when I first started blogging, and that was through going through submissions and just finding songs that I really liked and trying to support people regardless of like how big they were. So that's always been like a really like huge driving factor for me in everything that I do. It's finding stuff early and really developing it and trying to help that artist be the best version of themselves as opposed to coming in and just being like, do this, 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 and this. It's really about helping artists grow and then helping tell their stories from the Genius side.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think one thing I noticed, like with all music industry professionals, is like we started here, and then somehow, some way, it just webbed out, and then yeah, we all have multiple jobs. So shout out to you. Also, shout out to Rob. If you guys are unfamiliar with Rob from Genius, make sure you follow him. He is the
Legend.
OG, and a very just good guy in this game.
Really
So
a great guy.
yeah,
I couldn't have had a better mentor, if I'm being honest. Like he really I say this all the time, but he's really changed my life. Like it took me from this one place in my career and like put me in a, like I came to New York, I didn't know anyone. You know what I mean? Like Rob has known everyone here for a really long time. And like I even noticed like when I got here, like the community, especially in the media space in New York, is very tight knit. Like they all know each other from previous jobs and stuff like that. So for me, it was really weird just coming in from Nashville, not knowing anyone at all. And I really, that's not a reason that Rob should have picked me out of all the other people that I know he talks to. But, I think it's really changed my life and I owe him a lot. So.
Oh yeah, networking is the key. So let's talk about a little bit more about your role as an A&R at Genius. What does that look like? I think there's sometimes a lot of like unclarity about what A&Rs do, what their role is. So yeah, I'd love for you to elaborate.
Yeah, so I think the even better part is there's also, I think, a lot of times a bit of a confusion between like artist relations specifically and then being an A&R. So historically, the artist relations department have not been A&Rs at Genius. So loosely, sure, like we're finding talent, we're trying to like really dig through data and use that as a way to kind of point us towards people who are performing well on YouTube specifically, because that is a platform where we publish all of our content. And so pretty early on in my career, I realized like, all right, like if stuff does well on YouTube, it should do well for us. And so for the first couple of years, I think when we saw the really explosive growth in subscriber base, like it was, first 2 years I was there, we went from like 500K to, I want to say like 4 million, almost 5 million subscribers on YouTube. And a lot of that I think is attributed to the fact that we really looked at what was natively doing well on the platform, and then kind of leveraged that in the combination of stuff that we also just from like a taste standpoint knew was going to be good. Did a bunch of content like verified, deconstructed. That was a really, really fun time of growth. Now it's changed a little bit. So I've kind of shifted from that and I am doing more traditional A&R work, which involves scouting artists, looking for things that maybe fit in our distribution platform and in our content strategy, signing artists, proposing deals, pitching those internally, doing a little bit of math, if I'm being honest, and calculating in the case of somebody wanting like a marketing advance. All right, like what can we realistically give this artist based off of their past streaming history, which will also allow us to recoup on our investment, which is an important part of this. I think that people leave out a lot is that if you sign a deal anywhere that involves any sort of money, they're going to get that money back because it is, at the end of the day, that is the business side of things. So I think as an A&R, I have always seen it as find an artist, develop an artist, put that artist out, but like really like find talent, right? Like I don't think that that's necessarily the way that all A&Rs think, especially in 2022. Like from what I've seen from the media side, the last couple of years have been very data driven first and not necessarily very talent driven. And it seems to be that it is about getting a moment or capitalizing on a moment to recoup on an investment as opposed to investing in developing and signing talent at an early stage and then building it, which is, I think, history. Like growing up, that's what I always thought it was, right? Like I would look at A&Rs and be like, oh, like they have signed and developed some of the biggest artists in the world. I think it's different now just because of the access that people have to both creating and releasing music. And then also for A&Rs, just the way that people can look at how things are being consumed and analyze data. So it's tough to say. Like I think the role of an A&R now, I mean, at its most basic is to sign artists to the label, right? Like past that, like it's kind of dependent on who the A&R is and how much they care about what they're working on. But like, I've definitely seen like both sides of it. There are some A&Rs that I see who do stuff. They'll sign artists and they will put everything into making sure that that artist is getting the best product out possible. I've also seen A&Rs who just sign artists to labels and then just kind of leave it. You know what I mean? They just like let the artist try and figure it out. So it's hard to say exactly what the role is. You know what I mean? But I think at its most basic, it's signing artists to whatever company you're an A&R at.
Awesome. So what are like super common misconceptions people have about artist relations and A&R?
I mean, I think the probably the most common misconception that people have about artist relations is that it is super glamorous. It's not. It, oftentimes it's like dealing with artist teams when they're being super difficult about nothing at all that is like very important to them, but not necessarily like a priority for you in artist relations, right? So for us at Genius, it's like we interface as kind of like the front line for any artist team requests or anything at all. Like, we get press releases every day of the week. We get, honestly, like messages all over the place of people being like, yo, get me on Genius. Yo, like put my lyrics on Genius. And like, I think it's more so being that first person that people see when they come through the door. That's probably the best way that I can describe it. Like if someone comes to the office for a visit, I'm there to say hi, to listen to their music, to talk to their team, to find out what they've got going on, and just have like a really well-rounded idea of like who this artist is. That was how I used it. I think like when I first started in the role, it was really about like one, building my network of artists, managers, publicists, digital people, so that when it came to booking things for Genius, it was pretty easy for me to get to them. But also at the same time, like identifying talent early and trying to be aware of things before maybe they had that big hit. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Biggest misconception is probably that it's super fun all the time. It's definitely not fun. Like I would say, like the majority of it has not always been fun. Like getting an email at midnight with someone being like, "Yo, like you leaked our lyrics," when like it's the song is leaked on like a forum somewhere, and then like our community is just like transcribed onto the site. Like that stuff's not fun. And like verifying accounts and like doing all of the little like behind the scenes stuff, not that great. But when you get to do the interview part of it, I will say that's really where it is fun. Um, not all the time, but there are definitely some interviews that I've done that like have really stood out, and like interactions that I've had that have really stood out.
Yeah, that's amazing. Kind of how we were talking before, like
Yeah,
connect with good people, man. It makes it all worthwhile.
100%.
So traditionally, I think people think that like A&Rs maybe go out and discover like what we've seen in movies, you go to shows and all of that good stuff. So now with the current landscape, is it more common for A&Rs to find artists still? Or has it kind of switched where artists can now pitch themselves to A&Rs? And what's a good approach if so?
So I think it's both, right? Like I think I see people talk about this a lot, right? And I really do agree in a sense. Like if you are approaching an A&R, you are kind of already giving up the leverage that you would have going into a deal, right? So like, yeah, you can reach out to A&Rs, and if they decide they want to sign you, the odds of you not getting a great deal are much higher than if that A&R finds you and they want to sign you. Does that make sense? So like, I kind of look at it that way. I don't think it's worth you trying to find an A&R. And also, like, you got to also think about, like, all right, do I even need a major label deal? Do I want one? You know what I mean? Like, really, like at the beginning of this, it's like understanding, like, what am I going to have to sacrifice if I try and go to a major label situation versus what can I achieve if I stay independent? Because, like, I manage artists as well, right? So I think about this from a management perspective, probably more so than like a label A&R perspective, because I haven't been a major label A&R. I don't really want to, like just from what I've seen personally. Um, and a lot of times I just think about it in the light of leverage, right? Like if you want a great deal in any industry, in any situation, you want to have leverage. So why would you reach out, give up leverage, and then be chasing a deal as opposed to making them chase you by building leverage in the first place? Um, so I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't really reach out to A&Rs if I'm being honest. I think if you're a songwriter and a producer, absolutely hit them up because they're going to help you get in rooms to write with artists and write for artists. And I think A&Rs are constantly looking for that specifically, right? They're looking for writers, they're looking for producers to work with. They're not necessarily looking for artists all the time. And I think that can also be super demoralizing. Like I've been the person sending projects out as a manager to A&Rs and trying to get feedback on it and trying to see what they think. And they don't really respond unless they think they can get something out of the situation, right? So I don't know. My best advice, I think, for all the artists in here and all the managers here is to really just create the leverage yourself and like build it as much as you can. Because at the end of the day, there is a label team that will work on your stuff. But realistically, they're not necessarily the best of the best. The best of the best are going to have their own companies, and you're going to have to hire them separately anyway. So if you could, like, the label's really just a bank, right? Like you get a loan You pay back that loan over time, probably with an interest rate. You give up a lot of freedom in doing that with a major label, in my opinion. Versus some of these other independent things you can look at, like distro, where if you can like quite literally show that you have earnings statements, you can go to them and be like, hey, this is how much of an advance I want based off of my past earnings, and they can kind of calculate that and honestly like give you something if you want it, as opposed to a label where they're going to take a lot of control, as well as maybe taking merch, maybe taking touring and all of that, if if you sign a 360 deal. um but I don't know, I also talk to my artists about this, because like it's kind of up to you as an artist in what you want and what you're willing to give up, right? Like if you want that big machine behind you and like you're trying to get to a certain point, I think, yeah, the labels are absolutely necessary, right? Like you have to be in that system, I think, to get to a certain point. And whether that's at the beginning or further into your career, eventually you'll probably have to go into that system. If you're not as concerned about that and you just want to make music for you and you want to be able to sustain and have a life, there are other avenues you can take as an artist to stay independent, to maintain that control, to build that leverage, and also to find funding as well. So sorry, that was a really long-winded answer
No, no,
to
you're dropping freaking gems right now, honestly.
like I just wouldn't approach A&Rs honestly. Like if they reach out to you, like absolutely talk to them. If they want to have a phone conversation with you and talk about what you have going on, do that, because that's great for your network in general, and it's great to have those eyes on you. At the end of the day, though, most of them are just looking at like social. They're looking at these social platforms or these press things and just kind of finding artists that way. Like I know for me, like I try to get a really well-rounded idea of who an artist is before I'm even thinking about it. Like I want to know that people are talking about the artist, that people are listening to them, that there's a social following that we can tap into. It's really great if there's an artist who already has editorial playlisting in place from an independent standpoint, just doing it through DistroKid or TuneCore, because that's a really, it's like kind of having those building blocks to go from. I don't think A&Rs want to sign stuff early anymore. They want to sign stuff when it's already packaged and ready to go, so that they can amplify the thing that you're already trying to do. So I honestly would kind of just say, like, just keep making your shit, keep pushing it, keep trying to figure out the best ways to promote yourself, because it's doable. And try not to give up too much control, because that also can hurt. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I've been in and out of a major label deal with an artist of mine, and it wasn't as tight as we'd hoped for. You know what I mean? Like, not at all. We just got stuck for like 2 years, and it killed all the momentum we had going into the deal. And I've seen that happen to a bunch of different artists. So I just think there's like a timing aspect to this as well, that you have to be aware of.
I appreciate the long-winded answer, because I do think that these are things that are traditionally kept from artists, and then it leaves us spinning our wheels, spinning our dollars, making a bad impression on ourselves, because
Yeah.
we don't know these things. So I appreciate all the information. You're good. So how do you build a professional relationship with not only an A&R, but just people in the music industry in general? I feel like a lot of artists via TikTok seem to struggle with that piece.
Yeah. Interact with them organically. Don't make it a transactional thing. That's the best thing that I can say, to be honest with you. Like if you engage and interact with somebody on a person to person level, like the best example I can give of this is, Shane Lib MGMT on Twitter. So this dude out of nowhere, like a year and a half, just starts interacting with all like everything I do on Twitter, reposting it, just supporting it naturally, like supporting my artist organically. I have no idea who this guy is. I've never met him in my life. But every time I see him post about it, I'm like, yo, like, thank you so much. This is like such a nice thing for you. Like, you don't have to do that. I really appreciate it. Now, like a year and a half later, like he's working on the Digitalog stuff, which is like, I think I connected him with Drew originally. Like, he's been working on the Digitalog stuff. Like, this dude still supports everything I do. He works with artists, and like I've playlisted a bunch of the artists he works with. Like, he's just done a really, really good job of interacting extremely organically, I think, with not only myself, but a bunch of other curators and other like people in the industry. And it's really opened a lot of doors for him, if I'm being honest. Like, I really think that has been a huge driving factor in the way that his career has grown in the last like year and a half, is just these organic connections he's been building with people through social without it being transactional from the jump. And that's not to say he hasn't asked me for shit, because he's definitely asked me for shit, but it was after we'd already built that like organic relationship. And then it was over time, it was like it became more of like a friendship than this transactional thing. And I think that's a good way to look at anything across the board in this industry, like, because everything is so relationship based. You really have to invest your time in like building real relationships with people. It can't just be yo, can you do this for me? Yo, will you check this out? Let me know what you think. Like that has to be another layer of the connection that you have with somebody to make it, to make, this is a bad thing for me to say, but this is the best way for me to put it towards my artists in a way, right? Like it's dirty when you say it this way, but it just is what it is. Like this whole thing is like a mental game, right? Like you are not only trying to somewhat manipulate people in the grand scheme of things, like as a whole audience to want to consume what you're putting out, but in a sense, you are also manipulating relationships to make sure that you are looked at positively across the board. Like you just want to be like somebody that people think about in a positive manner, right? I do think like when you think about it like that, it's not manipulating, but it's just the easiest way to say it, right? You are kind of manipulating the situation to be someone that people like. Because if they like you, it's way easier to get people to support you in general. I think that is just like a real thing. Like as much as I hate to put it that way, like it is. Like people like you and they like what you do and they fuck with who you are as a person, the odds of them supporting what you do creatively and like even if you have a business, right? Like and you're trying to sell pots or whatever, if people fuck with you already, the odds of them buying the pots just to support you because they like you are probably higher. Same thing with merch, same thing with music. So I think in a way you have to think about it like that. Like, don't kiss ass all the time, but you have to like know like when you just gotta like take something or when you can like be like, nah, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like the relationships aspect of this, I cannot stress enough how important it is. Like you have to maintain these relationships and have good relationships and leave a good taste in people's mouth.
Yeah, most definitely. I had a conversation with one of our members a few days ago, and which I completely agree, like the the notion that networking is like forcing relationships is dead, because networking is really like being like, oh damn, you're cool, let's be friends,
Yeah,
and then later integrating our talents for mutual benefit.
100%. And I think too, like it, yeah, no, that's it. That you nailed it.
Yeah, and I said this the other day too. It's like connection influences action, period. There's no amount of, we just talked about this earlier, like no amount of money, there's nothing that is more valuable than human connection, and that just has to be first.
That's just I think that's just a business thing in general, right? Like if you do any business like that, at the end of the day, like the people that you work with and the clients that you have and like the buyers that you have, like it's important to maintain all those relationships because at the end of the day, like, well, one, you never know where people are gonna end up. That's something I always tell artists. Like you should treat everybody as just as important as you treat the CEO. You know what I mean? Because like you never know where that person's gonna end up, regardless of what company they're at, regardless of what industry they're in. All those relationships long term could really open any door. Like at any point could open any door for you into anything at all. So I really stress this with my artists too, of just really like treating everybody well first and foremost. Cause like, I don't know, the artists that I like to work with the most and the ones that I think across, like we do production stuff, right? Like we talk about the ones that aren't good, like not all the time, but like, it comes up, like we finish a shoot, we go, there's still a bunch of normal ass people who go to an office afterwards and talk about the experience they just had. Like there are definitely experiences that have left bad taste in our mouths, and we've just not wanted to work with those artists again. If I'm being honest, like we literally had this conversation in a meeting the other day of like an artist who was really difficult for me to deal with when we shot. And now it's somebody else on the team who's like, well, should we shoot with them? And they're like, well, hey, didn't you have this terrible experience last time? And I was like, yeah, it was pretty bad. And then everybody was like, all right, well, then let's not do it at all. So like, I think the impressions you give people and that you leave people with are extremely important. And so you should always carry yourself with a level of professionalism as well.
Absolutely. Word travels fast, period.
Small industry. It's like high school. If I'm being honest, like it's no different than high school. It's just high school in music industry. So just keep that in mind. Like
And also
lots of clicks.
on the same flip of that coin, don't burn bridges as well.
Oh yeah, definitely don't burn bridges. Honestly, even if somebody is like terrible to you, like I'll usually just be like, all right, like sorry, I dropped my pen. Let me keep that in mind and remember that. But I don't necessarily need to burn the bridge. I just need to be aware of who this person is and what kind of person they are. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm very much like this whole thing is a really long game. Nipsey said it best: "It's a marathon, not a sprint." Like you got to think about it in long term. Short term stuff can hurt you long term, but you should think about the long term effects of what you do.
Facts. I love that. Okay, so I'm gonna ask one more question and then I am going to open it up to our members. So members, get your questions ready. I'll have you all raise your hand and go in order. But my last question, it's always my favorite. What are your 3 best tips for musicians to get discovered?
Consistent content. It doesn't necessarily have to be high quality. I think one of the things that I love to tell people is, if you look like artists like I can't remember his name, but he did the song Block Baby, and it looks like it was shot on like a digital camera from like the mid 2000s and like edited on Microsoft Paint. Like it's not good, but the video got like 15 million views or something ridiculous like that, right? So it's not necessarily about having this like super, super high quality content. I don't think that matters as much today as it did, when people didn't have access to just create on their own. But consistent content is really important. Being, you know, if you're putting songs out, make sure you've got the next song scheduled and finished at least. You know what I mean? Like have a rollout plan. Really like think about, all right, what am I doing to continue to build momentum? Because like at the end of the day, it's all momentum, right? Like if you stop releasing music, unless you're already super established, if you stop releasing music for 6 months, when you put that next song out, it's going to be way harder for you to get people to listen to it than it was when you were consistently putting out music. So I think consistency is a really big thing now. Being aware of where people are consuming music and finding music. This is a big one for me. Editorial playlists are great, but at the end of the day, is that going to be the thing that is going to build you this loyal and engaged fan base over a long-term period? Or is it going to boost your streams for a very short-term period? Probably the second one. So I look at things like Twitch, Discord as really, really great ways to embed yourself in communities that are first and foremost interested in finding new music and finding new artists. If you're an emerging and independent artist, that's where you need to look. You need to look at platforms that are pushing those artists specifically. Complex, doesn't matter. It's not going to do that much for you. You pay $3,500 to a publicist for them to get you a placement on a big like media outlet. But if no one knows who you are and there's not already some sort of a fan base in place, it's not really going to matter. And then after that, it's going to be much harder for you to get back in there again if it didn't already like perform well, right? It's the same thing with YouTube stuff. If it doesn't perform well, it's harder for me to bring an artist back and do something with them again because there's just no proof of it working, right? So I think the content thing is one, consistent content. Two, really looking for places that push independent artists and artist discovery. So like all these TikTok curators, definitely follow them and interact with them and send you shit in because like at the end of the day, they're putting the music in front of all these people and getting a lot of views on it and driving a lot of traffic towards artists. So really like double down on the social stuff, if I'm being honest. Like to me, that's like the most important thing right now. Build your community. That's the last thing I'll say. Like if you really want to do this long term, look at the artists that have, like a Kendrick, a J. Cole. Like TDE is not an overnight thing. That was like a decades long thing. They already worked on that shit and they built a community around them. Same thing with Dreamville. J. Cole's been doing this since I was in high school. You know what I mean? Like I'm far from high school. And so it's really cool to see them build community around music first and foremost. Like I think that's the thing that really makes the biggest impact on an artist is like if you can really cultivate that community. And I'll say Discord again because I think it's a great way to kind of like aggregate all those people in one place and then be able to market to them directly without having to worry about algorithms, right? Which is probably the thing that harms people the most in promotion today is just like having to work around what is the algorithm on Instagram? How do I get it in front of my audience? Do I have to put $500 into ad spend just to get in front of my followers? Or can I just get everyone on my Discord, hit at everyone and immediately get a notification to them? And that also allows you kind of, again, leverage when it comes to the business side of things. If you can market merch directly to 200 people and sell every single one of them a $30 piece of merch, you've created a budget for yourself to work and push your next project. You know what I mean? So I think those would be probably the best ways to me to really like build leverage and to build something that's maybe long lasting as well.
100%. I also think I see a lot of musicians having trouble understanding the virality aspect of music now, and also integrating that with like a true fan base. It's the integration of both. It's not just worrying about going viral, or it's not just worrying about building a fan by fan. It's about going viral and building fans.
I worked with Amethyst on this last Isaac Zell rollout, which is just one of the artists I manage. And
Shout
I
out
think
Olivia.
shout out to Olivia, shout out to Amethyst. They're very good at what they do. The thing I took the most from it, that I really appreciated them saying throughout the entire campaign was it's not about views. It's about engagement. It's about getting likes, followers, comments, shares. Like at the end of the day, that's what you want. Like you can buy followers. It doesn't do shit for you if they're not engaged and if they don't comment, if they don't share, and if they don't take part, if they don't buy tickets, if they don't buy merch. Like at the end of the day, it does not help you to have 100,000 followers and have only 1 to 2% of them actually engaged with what you're doing. It's just like fluff. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Um, so engagement is key, and you should really focus on that, like building engagement. And sometimes that is just like asking questions and interacting with people in an organic way and not just promoting to them. Which is the other thing that I think is really important if you're an artist, first and foremost. Like, don't always promote all the time. Like, you got to be like a real ass person too, for people to like, you got to give people a bit of who you are, because they've got to connect with you as a human being, right? Like, they got to know and care about who you are as an artist and as a person, to like really like stick with you for the long haul. I think that's why you get like, these like young teen pop stars, like they really just give a ton of themselves to the audience. And they get it back. So I think that's important too. Like, it's hard because that's just a difficult thing to do, to share you share yourself with like complete strangers. But that's kind of the path you're taking if you're an artist, if I'm being honest. Like, that's the point.
1,000%. Absolutely. All right, now it's about that time, my favorite time.
Let's go.
So members, you are welcome to ask your questions. If you don't have questions, introduce yourself, whatever. So just raise your hand and we can get started on answering your questions. Yeah, so while we're waiting on this, in the meantime, Olivia was the one who gave me my start, actually.
Sick.
Yeah, I interned for her doing some social media stuff, and it's just one connection, one great person to another great person to another great person, and we're here today. Honestly, it was that easy.
I love what Amethyst is doing. I mean, I just love one it's a woman-led company, to be honest, because it's just a good thing. Like, we should have more of that in general. And also just like more, this should just be equal. I just don't get it. Like, it's stupid. The whole thing's not being equal shit is just madness to me. So as much as we can promote that is good. And I also like that she's very POC leaning as well, as a fellow person of color. That's also good.
Facts. All right, Kid Kai, you are up first.
Let's go.
Hello?
I think he's unmuted, but I don't hear him.
I don't hear you, kid. All right, while you're getting that situated, I'm gonna just go down.
We'll come back.
Eduardo, what's good?
What's going on, man? How you guys doing? My name is Eduardo Gomez. I'm the CEO of Tunnel Vision, a record label I started with a group of people I grew up with in the South Bronx. So I currently manage an artist as well as a producer and a DJ as well. And I would just like to know, in terms of marketing, what has been the number one most effective tool or resource that you always look to when putting out a project or communicating your work to people to see if you want to work together or see if it's a good fit? Like, what is your one go-to?
Hard to say. So I work with a small budget more often than not, because like, we self-fund everything. I'm not rich by any means, so like I get that aspect of it. So I usually just will prioritize what I need right now. You know what I mean? So in the case of Isaac, who is probably my biggest artist at this point, we've been doing this for like 8-9 years. When we first started out, it was, I want to say, it was a lot of ad spend, you know what I mean? Just for visibility. It was getting an audience of people and looking at where we could do it, whether that was paying YouTubers to do reaction videos, which we did for a while, whether it was spending targeted ad spends on YouTube ads or on Instagram ads so that we could reach people who would like his music. I think it was that at first. As we moved further in, now it's like hiring somebody to help with social media strategy and calendar all of that out and help them figure out, all right, like, what is the things that you can do to grow these platforms so that you are gaining more engaged fans outside of your listener base already.
Right.
I think it's prioritizing what you need in the moment and what you have the budget to spend on. One thing that I've seen work extremely well for us on the streaming side is strategic features and just paying for people to be main artists on songs, which can get costly. but if I'm being honest, has been one of the most impactful things that we've done. Getting people like Mick Jenkins on a song, which like you can literally just email him, like he'll tweet like, I'm doing features for this much. You know what I mean? Like finding artists who like do features and will be main artist will really positively impact both how your music streams, but also who sees it, because it's going to serve it to their audience as well, right? So like that's why I say strategic features. It's got to be somebody who's in the realm of like where you're trying to get your artist. So I always try and think about it like that. Like, all right, like this is my artist. This is the type of music he makes. What audience is going to appreciate this? What audience should I be pushing to? And like you could do like Twitter pages, Instagram pages, TikTok curators. Like there are a lot of paid options. Also just try and build a relationship so you can get that shit for free though, if you can, because that's really the move.
Well, I appreciate that, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Facts. All right, Kid Kai, let's try this again.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, we got you this time.
All right, bet. Yo, first of all, shout out to Kayvan, man. I met him through seeing him on Instagram a couple months ago. And ever since then, I've been in his Discord. He does amazing reviews every week.
Shout out to you. Thank you.
You know, I seen this opportunity. I came here, but my question is, what if I heard him saying the story about him coming in college and trying to do the internships and stuff in the studios. So if you did a studio internship like already, would you like say next step would be like a company, like a professional company that's like a little more like intricate?
It depends what you want to do, like in your career as well. You know what I mean? I think that's an important part. Like if you want to be an engineer, keep interning in studios. Don't go anywhere else. You know what I mean? Start assisting in studios, because that's going to be the thing that's going to help you get in sessions and running sessions and then getting clients and like, you know, becoming a staff engineer. If it's wanting to get into the business side of things, and yeah, you want to just try and get an internship at like maybe a bigger corporate company. The thing that I'll say about that is it looks really good on your resume, right? That corporate training is like a completely different type of training. That's the one thing I learned from my first corporate music industry job. Like the training that I got versus the people who didn't go through like a big corporate company first is extremely different. It's really helped me be very scheduled and like very organized, which I've seen a lot of people who don't come from that not be. And it is like a constant flow of work. So for me, like I went to like a really, really high pressure situation work-wise, and I think it just, you know, it helped me become good at what I do now, because it's like kind of an easier version of what I was doing there. So I think it does kind of depend on where you want to be in the industry. And if you don't know where you want to be yet, I would suggest that you just do a bunch of shit until you figure out.
That's kind of what I'm on right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm not on your time. And like I was making music in college, and then it was like, I'm like, hey man, it's like it's the business. I'm a music industry major. So it's like,
yeah,
get my feet wet in every side of the business, do as much as I can, make as many natural connections as possible so we can push forward. By the way, I'm from New York. So Eduardo, I am going to connect with you for sure. We're definitely going to get up. I love to meet people in New York City so we could do some great things. But thank you so much, Kayvan.
Yeah, no problem, bro. I'll see you in the Discord.
No problem. And thank you, Abby. I just subscribed to your app today, Creators Club. So thank you. Shout out to you.
Oh yeah, thank you for joining. I appreciate
Abby,
it.
I just had one quick request, my bad, to cut you off. Could you make it possible to write in the chat? Because I think it's disabled right now.
Yes. Thank you for letting me know. I was wondering why all you guys were ghosting me. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Go. Thank you. All right.
Appreciate it.
Yan, you're up next.
Got you. Thank you, by the way. I just had a general question. I'm an I'm a ground level artist that just started, but I wanted to know, do you guys have any advice as towards like organizing like a certain schedule for like release dates? Like I have a general consensus of trying to like get the song together like a month before you drop it. But as far as like actually building momentum off of that and like posting, like what would you guys suggest as like a schedule?
I think at the beginning, the schedule matters less than once you get further in. Like I would say like just as much as you can get out. Like don't turn the song in under 2 weeks before you plan on releasing it. That's like the biggest thing. Like give yourself time. I usually like to schedule things out a month in advance. And then like do everything you can, especially in the beginning, to push people to pre-save. And that's like all your fucking friends and your family, get them to go pre-save, because that does make a difference on release day. And then after release, bro, you just got to push that as hard as you can, and don't stop pushing it. Like that's one thing that I think artists do frequently. And like, honestly, like a lot of media companies don't react to things after a certain point. Like I'd say you got a 2-week window to like really push a single, right? Before people are like, oh, we're not covering that because it's too old, which is dumb. But that doesn't mean stop pushing it, because there are other avenues that aren't media, things like Twitch, things like Discord. Like you can get in these Twitch streams and get reviews. Like there's more people than me doing Twitch music reviews. You know what I mean? There's like a bunch, and they have really big followings. I'm one of the smaller people doing it. If I'm being honest, they're like way bigger channels that do this like frequently. T-Pain has a Discord where he listens to the people in the Discord all the time. So it's definitely get into things like that, because like I think that, and honestly kind of the Web3 space is where I think a lot of this stuff is moving into, and it's a little bit more equitable for artists in general and easier to get stuff heard. So I would just think about that as well. Like look for the avenues that aren't like the normal shit, because it can just give you like an opportunity to do it. And then go hard on TikTok too. There's really no reason to not do that. You should just go hard on TikTok in general if you're an artist.
I will say too, for my TikTok, I've grown to 12K in the last 4 months, and that has been 3 a day. 3 a day. And I truly on my most tired days, I just duet some relevant shit, and those ones happen to be the ones that are like,
I got to do that more. I've been trying to do 2 a day, and it's hard. I totally understand. It's such a time consuming fucking thing, but
it does.
As a platform, it's just so much, like the opportunity for growth is so much higher than Instagram or Twitter. Like unless you're like a real Twitter head, like I will say my Twitter's grown like a lot recently, but like TikTok, the opportunity for growth is outrageous.
Yep. Oh, all right. Angel, let me know if I got that right. You're up next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Angelique, but it's fine.
I'm so sorry, Angelique.
Get it right.
I see that you already answered one of the questions I had, which was about Discord servers, because I really love the community aspect of music, like the Creators Club, that type of stuff. I love discovering artists. So I was wondering, what are some Discord servers or some Twitch streams I should join to start?
Let me look through my Discord server list right now.
Of course, I'm gonna be joining yours now since I know about it.
Your notes ready.
Since the 80s, just started one, which is the management company / label that has like JID, Earth Gang, Nyamza, Sofago, and like some other folks as well. So I would join there. There's a lot of really cool music industry people in there, especially if you're in hip hop and R&B. It's not super organized yet, but it's very early. So if you're trying to get in touch with those people, now's probably time to get in that Discord. The Digilog Discord server, which if you haven't joined, you should join. They have all their playlist opportunities, but it's also just like a really good way to connect with people from other cities. If you're going there, mine, which is linked in my bio, I'll also put an invite for everybody here after we're done. Pigeons and Plains has one. They do a listening every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, where they listen to submissions from the Discord server. I've had songs played on it. They really do pull things from the submissions. Like I think one of their curators goes through every week and just pulls the songs that are the best from the submissions, and we'll play them in the show. T-Pain's Nappy Boy Gaming. It's a little hard to find, but if you go to his Twitch stream, watch any of the video on demand and scroll through the chat, you'll find a link for it because people are spamming it in there, but he doesn't have it linked anywhere else. So you have to go through the videos. Swid Life, if you don't know what Swid Life is, go follow them on Instagram as well. But Swid Life is another like media company that has their Swid Life and Friends Discord server. What else? If you're into Web3 and crypto, the Blood Lions community, which is run by Melanie, is really good too. It's again a little bit more women and person of color focused, especially in the tech space. So it's really worth joining. What else have we got? There is my friend Chris Martin Yago, who's an A&R Prescription Songs. He has his. It's called Hell Yes, and he does a Twitch stream every Wednesday too, where he listens to demos from the community and gives feedback. What else have we got? Big Duck Energy on Twitch. He's a really, really hilarious streamer who does. He's like on like almost every single day, if I'm being honest. Wow. That's all I got for right now. I think those are all the ones that I'm like active in. Okay. There's like a bunch. Like almost every producer who's on Twitch has one. Like Francis got Heat and T- and L-. Like all those guys have Discords. So I would just like honestly like go start clicking through people's links and bios and find them, because it seems like everybody's kind of getting into it right now. And then Twitch, you kind of just have to be on the platform and you'll find it. If you go to the music section on Twitch, you'll start finding people and you can just kind of click through and see what you like. Everybody does a different thing too. There's like different genres. I do all genres, but some people like only rock, some people like only hip hop, some people are like only UK drill. Like it gets very niche.
I love that. But okay, one more thing that goes into that. Would you suggest as like a singer, I want to go start going live on Instagram, that type of stuff, but is Twitch something that you could go that I should start going live on? Or is that more for like gamers?
It's so there's a big
Like,
music community that's growing. There is a lot of singers that do extremely well who will just sing song requests all stream. And like that's one thing I've noticed about Twitch is cool. There's a lot of people who just play music and sing music who do really well on the platform. So if it's something that you want to do, I would suggest like learning about it. But I will say it is really fucking complicated. Like you have to download a broadcasting system. Like you got to set up like all your like there's a lot of time that goes to like actually setting up a good stream and making sure it sounds and looks good. But if it's something that you're interested in, you definitely should. I would just suggest getting on the platform first and just poking around and seeing if it's something you'd want to do before you like really double down on it. But it's a lot of fun. I love it. It's been a really cool way to build community and just like connect with people. So
okay. Thank you guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for the question. All right. We're gonna stop with the Nathan Russell's question just because that'll put us on track. But Ja, you're up next.
Hi. Just wanted to thank y'all for putting this on.
Thank you for popping out, bro.
Yes.
Yeah. And my question is like a music promotion question. I was just wondering, how do I integrate promoting my music into a platform that's like already been there, but for different type of content?
What do you mean, like a YouTube or Instagram or like for like
a TikTok account? Like I've been posting different type of stuff, but I've been trying to use it to promote my music, and it hasn't really been.
So my artist Isaac has the same issue right now because he has been doing a lot of like these are the plugins you should get for free and stuff like that, and he's been trying to figure out how to work music into it more. And the thing I'll say is it's just something you have to do over time. It takes time, and it's not going to hit the same way as your other videos at first, and that's fine. It doesn't need to, right? Because like at the end of the day, it's really the engagement aspect of it. So the people that are engaged with that content and who are listening to it will come back to you and find you, and that'll grow over time if you just keep consistently pushing it. I think you just have to keep working it in bit by bit into the content you're putting out. And if there's ways that you can incorporate the sound into the content you're making, that's another way to kind of push people towards your music, because you don't necessarily have to say it, but if they like the sound, they're going to click through and go look for it, right?
If I could add two things too. So the first thing is also think about your listener and think about their personality, right? So also make videos around personality types, less about promoting your music. And also, if you're promoting the same sound over and over again, try different clips or test out clips. Ask your Instagram audience, like, yo, which line are you guys feeling better? They'll tell you, they'll be vocal, but usually with artists, those are the two biggest things that I see. So either use some different sounds from your clip and also focus more on personalities, reaching personalities on TikTok than promoting your music.
Yeah, that's dope advice. That's great advice.
Got you. Thank you, guys.
Of course. Zavi, my boy.
What's going on? How's everybody doing?
Yeah, chilling, man. I can't complain.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for the talk. Yeah, I mean, I took a lot from what you're saying. I appreciate you being here, Abby. Thank you so much for bringing Kayvan into this.
Thanks for having me.
This is dope. And I know you touched up on being a little bit more personable on your social media. So I kind of wanted to ask if you had like a percentage breakdown of like how much should be promoting, how much should be music based, how much should be kind of personal in your life. And like, is it like a ratio to success, or is it, kind of throw it against the wall and see what happens, see what sticks?
I don't know if there's a set ratio necessarily. I know when we were doing stuff with Olivia, she was like, do like 4 videos a day and do like maybe 2 viral to like your own music content, right? And then that kind of changed over time. But I don't know. For me, I find I just kind of do whatever I feel like doing. Like that's not the best advice, if I'm being honest, but like, some days I'm just not feeling it and I don't want to do something that's like really personal. And I just want to make something that's just like, here are 5 songs that I found on this platform. So I kind of just feel it out, man. I think that's important too. Like you can't force it. You know what I mean? If you're just like having a shit day and you don't feel like being personable, like don't force it. Just take time for yourself, dude. You know what I mean? Like I think you just got to kind of weigh it out and do what feels right to you. I know it's not the best advice, but like I try to just kind of go by like, all right, does it feel right? Like, does this feel like a good time? Like, does this feel like the moment to do this? And if I'm feeling it, I'll do it. If not, I'll just wait and do it another day. I think
Yeah, so
that's-
basically, don't force it, but don't be mute either. Like just find the balance.
yeah, but no, like if you got to take a day, like take a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you got to take a couple days, you got to take a week. Take a week. Like don't feel bad about like taking a break. If you got to take a break, take a break. Because at the end of the day, we're all still human beings. Like I think that's another thing. Like beyond the whole like need to promote music and shit. Like I always tell my artists this. Like if you just aren't feeling it, and you can't do it. Like I'm not gonna force you to do it. It might impact what happens long term, but like also like so will you burning out, not being able to do anything at all. You know what I mean? Or like
Facts.
not having any creativity left, or not being able to write, or not being able to live your life outside of just creating. So like I don't know. I think it's important too. Like the balance is hard. I don't think that I've found it. If I'm being honest, like I don't know that I'll ever really find a balance, but like it is important to just like step away if you need to step away and just be like, nah, fuck it, I'll do it another day.
All right, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not the best answer. But
You're good. It was honest. I appreciate that.
I'm telling you guys, when you have those lazy days and you want to stay consistent, just do wedding. You don't even have to show your face. Okay, DVMA, you're up next.
Hi, it's Dama.
I'm so sorry. I'm so
It's all
sorry.
good. It's all good.
Everyone.
It's all good. This has been dope. Honestly, this is like the realest industry conversation that I've seen. Like the brutal honesty. I respect it.
I'm a bad liar. That's all that's happening.
That's dope. I wanted to ask, I'm an artist, but I'm also a part of a songwriting and production team, and I run a studio out in Brooklyn. And I definitely like we're getting into sync licensing and all of that, which is like one of my main focuses. But I definitely want to sell songs to artists, and I have dope production and just on deck. Like, how would I approach A&Rs and try to make that relationship happen?
So this is something I'm getting into now as well. It's not something I've done a lot of previously, but in the last like 6-7 months, it's something I've been really focusing on. I think there's a couple of different ways you can go about it. One is setting up co-writes with producers that are getting placements and just reaching out and being like, hey, are you looking for any writers or any collaborators in like a certain space, which I have seen work. You know what I mean? Like if I'm being honest, the placements I've gotten as a producer have mostly come from collaboration first and foremost. So doing things like sending out melodic loops, sending out top lines, like working on other producers' beats. So like just collaboration in general, I think is a really easy way to get placement. Outside of that, reaching out to A&Rs, I think you can, like, honestly, like, especially like look for junior A&Rs, like the younger ones who are like really working on the new shit. Cause like, that's going to be a good way to just get your foot in the door. And also like those kids generally move up pretty quickly when they get something that does well, you know what I mean? Reach out to artists directly. I always look at it like this, like the networking up is just as important as the networking laterally or down in some cases. So if there's an artist that I know is looking for songs, who's kind of on the rise, who's starting to get a little bit of buzz, but isn't necessarily there yet and is working independently, like I look at a lot of those artists and I'll reach out to them and be like, hey, are you looking for anyone to work with? Especially if they go to the city where the writer that I'm working with is at. If I see they're on a trip, I'll just hit them and be like, hey, do you need any producers or writers in this area? Which I will say, like, obviously from like, I've been able to kind of like build this place to the point where I can just hit people up and do that. But I think it's something you can do. It just takes time. You know what I mean? You could just build those connections with people. Managers are the ones who get shit done more often than not. So network with managers. Try and meet managers that manage artists that are in the space that you want to write in or you want to produce, have, productions placed in. And yeah, I don't know. It's really like a networking thing, if I'm being honest, like just doing a lot, you know what I mean? And sending out packs. That's a big thing. Like if you see somebody who's like posting about needing packs or anything like that, I always hit them up and I'll be like, hey, like, what's the email? Like, I'll send you a pack, regardless of the size of the artist. You know what I mean? Like if they're looking, it's just a good way to get the foot in the door. Or if you're running sessions out of the studio, inviting people to come to the studio for a session that's a cheat code, especially if you got a space, you know what I mean?
For sure.
So yeah, I would do that. And then I would honestly like just try cold hitting up some A&Rs, like that actually works more often than you would think. Like they are honestly, for the most part, looking for songwriters and producers, I think, more than they are for artists.
Okay.
They got to get those hits for their clients, right? Especially the artists that like take songs. Like if they're not writing songs, they constantly need songs to come in for them to cut and demo and see if they work, right? And then I think the other way would be like reaching out to publishing A&Rs specifically. but not under the guise of like, let me get a publishing deal, but hitting them and being like, do you have any clients who need writers to write with or producers to write with? And then I try and look at it like, how can I bring value to you and what you're doing, as opposed to how can you bring value to me? If you approach it like that and you're like, this is what I do, this is what I can help with, is this what you need? Usually I find that opens, it makes it easier to get the door open.
Okay. And when you send out like these packs, because I heard somewhere that people don't like attachments, is it better to like have it uploaded as a private SoundCloud link than attachments if you're going to send a pack?
So I think the best way to do it is like a box folder. And that's just what I've been doing recently. So I'll like make like really targeted box folders. So you could do that with Dropbox, you could do it with Box, but anywhere where they can download the songs as well. I know that sounds scary because like some people are sketch as fuck, but in general, like that you know, it's like titling it with like the key, BPM, like making it as easy as possible for someone to literally download the song, send it to their artist, and then cut it. You know what I mean? But I'll also make like really targeted packs. So if it's like somebody who's in the alt pop space, I will literally go through the songs that I have and put them into a folder that says alt pop. I'll send them that alt pop folder. Or if it's like hip hop R&B, I'll just make sure it's very targeted when I'm sending it, as opposed to like a really unorganized link. Like getting 200 songs in a link is a no-no. But like if you send like 20 songs that's like really targeted, like that's great. Like if they dig through all 20 and they're psyched about it, that's amazing. If they go through 5 and they're psyched about it, you know, cool. I just think it's like, you know, you don't have a ton of opportunity to get somebody to listen to something for the first time. So as easy as you can make it for them as possible is always kind of like what I go by.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Amazing. All right, we got 2 more and then we are going to close it out. So Nate, you are more than welcome.
All right. What's up, Kayvan?
What's up,
you're the GOAT. You're the best. Your
stop.
Discord, your Twitch, so fire. Been in there a lot over the last half year. So
I'm glad, man. Thanks for being there.
You're always dropping gems. I appreciate it. My question is like oddly specific. So I've been thinking a lot about like my next approach to releasing. And I've typically been thinking about it outside of the project sphere, because I just dropped my first album a few months ago. And now I'm also feeling like I want to drop song after song for a little bit so that I can, you know, build up a little momentum, build up a fan base, like you said. But I feel like I studied economics, so I have like this economical vision to it too, of like, I don't want to shoot a video for every single one of them. I don't want to have to do the same amount of promo for each one. So I feel like it's kind of difficult, I guess, to ask, but like, how is the best way to package it? Like, should I be dropping like one by one for a little bit and seeing how that works out? Or should I, especially since they have kind of a similar vibe, I have 3 songs in particular, I'm thinking, should I, you know, just go with an EP and just promote the shit out of it like that? I kind of just like your thoughts on that as far as release planning.
I'm very pro singles because I think they're easy to push and you can give a little bit more space behind them. Pushing a whole project is already very difficult, I think, for an emerging artist, because you have to get people to care about every song and listen to every song. Whereas if you push it as a single, each song is the focus, right? So focusing on one thing versus multiple things at once, I think, is the goal. You don't have to make music videos for all of them, honestly. Like I would focus. We don't do that. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like we'll put singles out, and some of them will get a much heavier push than others. And that's just a budget thing, and also just kind of gut feeling on like what song is the one that's going to impact. I think singles are easier to push though, because you can kind of put more of a concerted effort behind each one, and it's easier for people to digest, especially for an emerging artist. What I will say is, again, don't worry about the quality of the video content. If you can't make a whole music video, just make one of those videos you like rapping in front of your microphone and put it on TikTok and break it up like that. You know what I mean? Like if you record a video like that, you can turn that into like 4 different TikToks in theory, if you do like 15-second clips, right? Like, and the way I look at TikTok, especially within the hip hop community, and from what I see from like artists rapping on it too, like it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole thing. You don't have to put the whole hook there or the whole chorus there. I see people getting way more looks off of verses. So if you've got like 25, 30 songs, I'll just repurpose all of those verses, make a bunch of different videos of you rapping in front of your microphone. You got a series. You know what I mean? Like, I think don't worry so much about the like paying a bunch of money to like make this content, but just make what you can make on your own. And then, you know, just figure out ways that you can do it for cheap. That's really like how I have to operate that way, because we don't have a huge budget. So like more often than not, I'm telling my guys like, yo, just shoot whatever you can shoot on your phone, make a little set in your house. Like even if it's in just like a little corner, like it doesn't matter as much as like making sure the lyrics are on the screen while you're rapping. You know what I mean? Like I actually think that that's more impactful, is like literally putting the lyrics on the screen by you and making sure that anything you do is subtitled in some way. Like if people can read along and see what you're saying, like I don't know. I don't know if this is right, and Abby might have more of an idea, but like as far as what I've seen, like that's kind of like how I look at it. I'm like, all right, like if we can't make super high quality content, it's fine. We just got to make content, period.
For sure. I was kind of like also just thinking about it on a month-to-month basis. Do you feel like that's a good amount of time? Just because, like you said, like 2 weeks after is usually a good amount of time to still be promoting another song, and then you want to be promoting the next one before that.
I hear everything from 3 to 8 weeks being the sweet spot. I personally lean towards 3 to 4 weeks in between releases, especially if we're doing singles to singles, because monthly listeners will compound and then build over time. So naturally it will grow. And that's always a good look, because so many people just look at that monthly listener count number, even though it doesn't matter that much. But it is like, you know, like it's kind of like a nice little thing to have up there. So I think usually distributors will tell us to do like 3 to 4 weeks in between. I know the one we work with right now is always like 3 weeks. But I've definitely talked to some label people who are like 6 to 8 weeks. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. I would lean shorter in between, but that 2-week window is what I always ask for from my artists, at least, so that I can push a song for 2 weeks. Because after that 2 weeks, it is really hard to get it placed. But at the same time, like, you know, like less than 2 weeks is, you might as well just not push a song. Like it's not enough time to even give it time to breathe at all, right?
Cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, all right. And last question, we got Sosa.
Hey, Kayvan, big Twitch
What's up?
follower, man. Want to say what's up, guys. Anyways, as a question, I would say from a little bit of a business point, I would say, what can an independent young manager do for an artist that makes good, I want to say, music and all that, but it's not really productive and consistent? What can they do to help them grow, or what's the first step a manager can take with that artist?
Oh man, that's a tough one. It's tough for a bunch of reasons, right? Because I think when I first started out as a manager, I was like, I can make an artist do anything, right? Like I can get him to do the things I need him to do just by telling them these are the things that you need to do. As I've gotten older and I've done it for longer, I'm realizing that's not the case. And that doesn't mean give up on the artist by any means, right? Like I think first and foremost, you have to try and get them to do things the right way and explain to them why. Like I'm very transparent with my artists. Like if they're not doing something, I'm not going to be a dick necessarily, but I'm going to be like, look, like if you don't do these things, I can't help. Like there's not too much that I can do to like I can't make the music for you. You know what I mean? I can't do your socials for you. Unfortunately, it's just not what a manager can do. Like as an artist, you have to be able to do the creative aspects of it on your own, or at least be able to create without having your hand held through it. Otherwise, it's like literally impossible to do this at all. You know what I mean? So I would say like be tough on them. Like if you got to tell them what's up and be like, yo, bro, like, you know, for me to be able to do my job effectively, like these are the things that I need from you. Like, and if you can't do those things, then I don't know that I can help. Maybe don't put it that way, but you get what I'm saying. Like that's the kind of mindset I think you have to have with artists to an extent. But if it's like ways that you can help them get to that point as well, like that's also the job. You know what I mean? So like, you know, in the case of some of my artists, like like when Isaac first started out, you know, was getting him in with engineers and trying to have people mix shit for him. And like, that just didn't work. So when it didn't work, I was like, all right, bro, well, you got to learn how to engineer. That's all there is to it. Like watch these videos, go to these websites, do all this research. Like you got to learn how to do it. Like if we can't rely on somebody else to take your notes and do the thing that you want to do, like you're going to have to figure that out, or we're going to have to find somebody else who'll do it. So it's, you know, I think a lot of management is trial and error. It's either getting them to do something and then seeing if if it gets to the level that you need it to be at, or it's filling. And sometimes it is just babysitting, if I'm being honest. Like I hate to put it that way, but like I gotta babysit I call them every day and I'm like, yo, like, are you doing this? Like, have you done this today? Like, what do you need? What are you working on? Like, you know what I mean? Like bug the shit out of them. Like I think that's also like part of the job of being a manager. Is you just have to bug the heck out of your artist until they do the stuff that you need them to do. And if they don't do it, I do think that there are some artists that I've worked with where I wished that I had seen the red flags for what they were instead of brushing them to the side and being like, no, I can fix this. Because I do think there are certain things that you need to be aware of with artists, because there is just a level of work ethic that is required to succeed in this industry. And if they don't have that, or if they don't have that level of professionalism, sometimes it's just not possible to get them to change. And that's a hard thing to say. It's a hard thing to come to terms with as well, I think. But, and honestly, probably more than not, you're going to find that out afterwards when it's going to be too late, but you'll learn from it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just would, you kind of just got to do what you can. And then if it gets to a point where you can't do it anymore, like it just is what it is, unfortunately.
Of course. I get you. Yeah.
I would like to add to that too, if that's cool.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So what I was gonna say is I've also had my experience managing artists, and like Kayvan said, man, the first thing, like, pay attention to those red flags, because if artists aren't really ready to take on that role, like I'm fucking hungry, like I'm ready to learn, and they want to take more of the role of like, well, I just want to create and like let everybody else do everything for me. That is a huge red flag. And if you have someone like that, but you really believe in that artist, this is what I tell my people: make 5 songs completely finished, then come to me, and then we can work. But the going back and forth of like Kayvan said, like babysitting grown men, that shit gets old. And also never underestimate the power of communication. Like, talk to your artist, be like, bro, what is really hindering you? Like, what do you hate to do? And then if it's like content, or you know what I mean, like I don't get the social media shit. Well, then now you have like, okay, now you can problem solve, and it's a lot, you know, it's a lot more black and white as opposed to like
identifying the issues.
Then you can hire somebody who can fill that spot. You know what I mean? That's what I do with my artists. Like, if there's something you don't know how to do, you just can't do. Like, all right, fuck it. Then you got to spend the money. We got to find someone who can do it for you. And that just is what it is. But that's going to be the case across the board, right? Like throughout a career, like as a manager, like you've got to remember you can't do everything yourself. I do everything myself because I just can't afford to hire other people at the moment. But when you can't, when you get to a point where your artist is successful, you are going to have to delegate. So building a team is important. You know what I mean? Like, it just, do as much as you can for as long as you can, but don't, you know, if there's something you can't do and you guys got to get the budget together to hire someone to do it, like, don't be afraid to do that either. That's what everyone else is doing.
I would say, touching on like having to do everything yourself, trying to imagine, because I find myself doing that a lot too, especially coming from an independent collective with a bunch of artists. I would say, as a manager who's kind of figuring it out on their own, what are important connections to have as a manager? Because I know it's all about who you know and who you're getting into.
Again, honestly, man, everyone, like, I don't know, like, to me, like, I think you are more, I don't know the best way to put this, but you're more than just the supporting piece. You know what I mean? Like, to an extent, like your network and the things that you can build around yourself long term. Like, I've worked with the artists that I work with long term, right? But I've also had artists that have fired me for no reason at all, or at least to me, it felt like no reason at all. And I think the thing that I learned from that situation was, like, at the end of the day, and this is something Rob told me, right? Rob told me that if you think about this in like a sports analogy way, right? Like, great players will come and go, but a great coach will have a dynasty. You know what I mean? We'll have a really long career. So as much as it is you supporting these artists and believing in them and pushing them, there is an aspect of this of you building your own career and building your own network. And every piece that you bring to the table, regardless of what they're in, if it can positively impact what you're doing with your artists, is value. So I don't know, man. It's kind of like everyone, you know, you got to know the curators, you got to know who's doing stuff in the digital space. You got to know what companies to hire, what companies people are hiring, who's succeeding in the spaces where you need support. Knowing what the right producers are, having connections to the right producers, the right songwriters, to the A&Rs, like going to networking events and just literally meeting people and, like, you know, finding agents, connecting with agents. Like, you kind of have to know everyone, because at the end of the day, everyone is going to report to you in a way. Like, you know, the artist is, I hate doing this with a bunch of artists in the room, but the artist is the product. Like, if you think about it from a business standpoint, right? The artist is the product, and you have to be the one who's basically like selling the product to everybody and managing all of the teams that work on pushing the product. So, like, when it gets to that point of being like signed to a major label, like, you're going to be the one who's dealing with the people at the label, making sure that they're doing their job. You're going to be dealing with a third party publicist, potentially making sure they're doing their job and coordinating schedules with them. You're going to be dealing with the agency team and making sure they're doing the bookings properly and reviewing, you know, the deals that they're bringing in, the offers they're bringing in, the dates.
hands on
So
everything. I got it.
yeah, let's say everybody already. Like you've really got to be like just a know-it-all.
For sure. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry. Again, not the best answer, but it's just, yeah, it's the way I feel.
No, but I mean, it's the reality of it. I appreciate that. That's the most I could ask for you guys.
I'm sorry to call you all products. I know you're not. It's more than that, but it's just the easiest way to put it in business terms. It's more than that, I promise. I swear.
You are more than that. Well, that concludes our interview. So thank you for everyone who has joined us today. Your questions again were phenomenal. Shout out. Make sure you're following everybody in the chat as well. Kayvan, you got any final messages?
I did. I saw someone say something in the chat about this company Beat Bread who offer funding to artists, but you have to have a couple 100,000 streams. So I actually did one of those deals with Isaac, and it was really good. Like, honestly, there's not really a negative to it. If you do have the streaming history, you can go to them and like quite literally just punch in your numbers and they'll offer you an advance based off of previous streaming history. You will have to recoup that over time. You can kind of like structure your time frame the way you want it. Like there's like 5-year term, 7-year term, 8 years, like whatever. That will generally affect how much you actually get to. They do make, it's still a business. So expect like some sort of an interest rate on what they give you versus what you need to recoup. But if you don't care about your back catalog and you're looking for funding on what's next, it's really actually quite a good option because it's not limiting. And it's not a scam, which is weird, but really nice. So I would suggest checking it out. If you do have the streaming history, it's a really, really cool way. We did it for Isaac and it was a huge help, especially with this most recent rollout.
All right. Hell yeah. All right, everyone. We will see you at the next event. Thank you so much, Kayvan. We're going to take a shot down in Nashville tomorrow.
Hey, I'll see you soon.
All right.
Nice. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
one.